All right, let's dive in. Today, we are going to demystify one of the biggest concepts in business intelligence, the data warehouse. We're going to break down the architecture, the processes, and the tools that literally turn these huge mountains of raw data into game-changing insights. So let's pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works.
You know, everything really kicks off with this one big problem. Businesses are creating a tidal wave of data every single second of every day. But have you ever wondered why the data you collect today, right in the heat of the moment, is so incredibly difficult to use for any kind of deep analysis tomorrow? Well, that's the core challenge we're tackling.
And honestly, this slide gives us the perfect way to think about this whole topic. Picture your daily business data, your operational database, as this busy, chaotic newsstand on the left. It's all about what's happening right now. It's fast-paced, maybe a little messy, and totally focused on today's sales and transactions. The data warehouse, on the other hand, that's the library. It's calm, it's organized, and it's built for one thing: deep research into the historical archives.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to figure out why raw data just doesn't cut it for analysis. Then, we'll look at the three-tier blueprint of a data warehouse. After that, we'll head into the kitchen for a process called ETL. Learn how to slice up data to find answers, and finally, we'll see it all come to life with some real-world examples.
Okay, first up, why does raw data fail? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Trying to analyze historical trends using a system that's built for real-time transactions, it's like trying to write a history book using only today's newspaper. The tools, the structure, they just aren't designed for that job.
And this is the key takeaway here. A data warehouse is a totally different beast. It's a central place designed specifically for analysis. It pulls together historical data from all over the place, it integrates it, and, this is important, it keeps it stable and unchanged. That's what non-volatile means, so you can analyze it reliably over time. Remember, it's the library, not the newsstand. Okay, so how in the world do you build this library? Well, that brings us right to our second section, the three-tier blueprint. This is the fundamental architecture that makes the whole thing work. The easiest way to think about it is like a production line. Down at the bottom, you've got the factory, where all the raw materials get processed. In the middle, you've got the warehouse, where all the finished goods are stored and neatly organized. And then, at the very top, you have the showroom, where customers can actually interact with the final products. This visual really puts that whole blueprint into perspective, doesn't it? You can see the data flowing from the bottom up. It all starts in that bottom tier, the factory, where all the messy, raw data from your different systems is collected and transformed. Then, that clean, processed data gets moved up into the middle tier, our organized warehouse, where it's stored securely and structured for analysis. And from there, it's sent to the top tier, the showroom, where you, the user, can finally interact with it, building reports and dashboards to find those game-changing insights. So, let's zoom in on that factory floor, because this is where the magic happens. Section 3 is all about a critical process called ETL. And a fantastic way to think about it is like a data kitchen, where you're turning all these raw, messy ingredients into a clean, consistent, and, well, delicious meal. The process is really just 3 steps. First, you extract the raw data. That's like sourcing your fresh ingredients. Then, you transform it. That's all the cooking and seasoning. And finally, you load it into the warehouse, which is like plating and serving the finished dish.
And here's a closer look at our data kitchen in action. First, we extract. We're sourcing all our raw data ingredients from different places, like sales systems, apps, spreadsheets, you name it. Then comes the most important part, transform. This is where we clean up the mess. We're standardizing formats, fixing errors, and applying business rules. It's all the prep work that makes the final meal actually edible. Finally, we load that refined, analysis-ready data into the warehouse, all plated up and ready to be served.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this cooking and cleaning? It's simple, but it's incredibly important. That ETL process, it's like a gatekeeper for quality. It makes sure that the data you're analyzing is trustworthy, it's consistent, and it's reliable. You're not making decisions based on messy, conflicting information anymore. You're using a single source of truth.
Okay, now that we have all this clean, beautiful data in our warehouse, how is it organized so we can get to it quickly and easily? That brings us to Section 4, Slicing Data, Finding Answers. This is all about the internal shelving system of our data library.
Inside our library, there are 2 main ways to set up the shelves. On the left, we've got the star schema. It looks just like a star, right? It's built for speed. You have a central fact table, like sales, directly connected to dimensions like time and product. It's perfect for most straightforward reporting.
On the right, you have the Snowflake schema, which is more like a branching tree. It's built for efficiency, breaking dimensions down into smaller tables. This saves space, but it can be a little slower for simple questions. It's better for more complex, hierarchical data.
But to really unlock the power of all this organized data, we use something called an OLAP cube. And I want you to forget about flat, two-dimensional spreadsheets for a second. An OLAP cube is a multi-dimensional database that lets you look at your data from many, many different perspectives all at once. It's a total game changer.
And here's that concept in action. Just imagine your sales data isn't just in rows and columns, but it's in a cube with 3 dimensions: time, products, and regions. Now you can ask really complex questions like, hey, what were the sales of electronics in North America during the fourth quarter? And you get an answer almost instantly.
So how do we navigate this cube? Well, the first move is called a slice. This is where you take one single slice of the cube to focus on one dimension. So for example, we could slice out just the data for Q4 to see sales across all of our products and all of our regions just for that specific time period.
Next up, we can dice. This is like cutting out a smaller cube from the bigger one by picking values from a few different dimensions. So here, we're dicing the data to look at sales just for the first half of the year for only electronics and only in North America. It lets you get incredibly specific with your questions. And finally, there are 2 more essential moves. With Rollup, we can zoom out, maybe aggregating daily sales data into monthly or yearly totals to see the big picture. And with Drill Down, we do the exact opposite. We zoom in, going from a yearly view down to quarterly or monthly details to find out what's really going on. Together, these moves let you navigate your data from pretty much any angle you can imagine.
So we've got the architecture, we have the cleaning process, and we have the analytical tools. Let's put it all together in our final section, data warehousing in action. This is where all that raw data finally becomes real-world business decisions.
In the world of retail, data warehousing is an absolute game changer. By analyzing sales trends across different products, regions, and times of the year, retailers can totally optimize their inventory. They can make sure they have the right products on the shelves at the right time, cutting down on both annoying stockouts and costly overstock.
In finance, being able to analyze massive amounts of historical transaction data is absolutely critical for security. Data warehouses let analysts spot these really subtle fraud patterns that would be completely invisible otherwise. This helps protect customers and, of course, helps companies meet all those strict regulatory requirements.
And in healthcare, this stuff has a direct impact on people's lives. By tracking patient outcomes across different treatments and timelines, hospitals can figure out what works best, improve care, and allocate critical resources like staff and equipment way more effectively. It's a huge deal.
So, let's just recap the journey real quick. We started with the idea of the analytical library, turning raw data into something useful. We used the ETL kitchen, that whole factory-to-showroom pipeline, to refine the data. And then we unlock its power with the 3D analytical engine. Understanding these concepts is what turns all that scattered data into a true strategic asset for any business.
At the end of the day, a data warehouse is really just a tool for listening. It lets an organization hear the stories that are hidden inside its own history. Stories about customers, about market trends, about how to be more efficient. The only question left is, your data has a story to tell. Are you ready to listen?